Two, one, and we are live. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Winchild. How are you, Seth?
I'm good, Fred.
Great.
Looking for
Big
some
week.
toilet paper over here.
We'll get into that pretty soon. We have plenty of things to talk about this, including some toilet paper, which is, of course, in jest. It's not the biggest lead of the story, but it's something to talk about for sure. Um, let's start about something that happened earlier this week to start with, which is Tesla again changing prices. This time on the Model S and Model X lineup, it follows the price changes that happened last week with the Model 3, which were smaller price changes, and they were just related to they were across the entire Model 3 lineup, $400 increase. This time, its price decreases for only the base version of Model S and X. So Tesla is bringing the entry level down a little bit by $3,000 for the Model S and $2,000 for the Model X. No other uh, price change on the option or anything like that. So you get the same thing just for $3,000 less than last week. When we asked Tesla about it, no reason other than the usual we periodically adjust pricing and everything like that. But
that's kind of weird because I know that traditional automakers adjust prices quite a bit,
mm-hmm.
but I feel like the MSRP doesn't change that much. It's just the deals that they give to their dealers change, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing that people always come up with when we report on the price change. I always say, well, but other automakers, the price changes all the time because of the dealers. But that was Tesla's whole point too, the old direct sell business model, not to have the disadvantage of the dealers where they charge different prices and everything. You get one price and that's it. It's still true. It's still just one price. It's just that one price is changing constantly for some reason. Um, but yeah, and the other thing too is that they changed the pricing for this full self-driving option. Well, they didn't change. It's the same price. It's still $6,000 for all the cars. So that's we're going back to Model 3 too because it involves also Model 3 S and X. What they did is that they changed the pricing structure where normally the price will change between if you order before delivery or after delivery. You can since the hardware is on the car, whether you order it or not, you can upgrade to it at any time through a software update. That was more expensive, and that was the whole point of the self-driving program that Tesla wanted to incentivize people to buy it early because they said over time you're going to get new features, more advanced capabilities, and those will cost more to the customers. So if you order first, you're going to be able to prepay basically for those future capabilities. Now Tesla is moving away from that. There's only one price. It's $6,000. Um, the price will still increase though. So if you don't order it right now at 6,000 before delivery, you can still order it later, and it won't necessarily be $6,000. In a week from now, it probably still will. So you can order it after delivery for $6,000 in a week. But if the price changes in 6 months from now, for example, you're gonna pay that new price and not the lock-in price.
Right. And in six
Yeah.
months, it'll probably change like 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, at this rate, probably. So I actually prefer that structure. I think it's a little bit more simple, a little bit more straightforward. The only thing is that if you paid for for it in the because it was they increased the price like last month or a month ago something. So if you actually paid that $8,000 in the last few weeks, you just lost $2,000 for no reason because you didn't have those features. So again, it's an issue with this constantly changing price structures. It's you really need to I feel like it's almost easier not to look at it all the time. It's just you really need just to am I okay to pay that price for that car, and then once you pay for it, stop looking at it, start looking at the prices and everything because it's just going to be frustrating.
But I'll tell you the problem with the constant changing prices is people that want to buy a car know that the price is likely to change, might change for the better, might change for the worse. So it gives them anxiety and it makes people kind of back off,
Hmm.
like, hey, maybe the price will go down in a month. So they don't take a hit or they don't, make a move. And this is, I mean, this is a serious problem because, like, I know when I'm shopping for something big, I'm looking for the best price. I want to make sure that, because $2,000 or $3,000 is not a huge amount when you're talking about, but 2 or 3 thousand bucks is 2 or 3 thousand bucks.
Oh yeah, it makes a difference.
That's a lot of money. Like, you can have a lot of fun with 2 or 3 thousand bucks.
Hmm.
So, like, why can't they just keep the price where it's at, kind of let things go? Somebody suggested that they're using AI to to uh,
Hmm.
to adjust the prices. Do you think that's possible at all? Do you think they're
I doubt it. I think it all points to demand. So they try to generate demand to price reduction and things like that. Uh, I also argue like that what we reported on the price change from S and X Tesla sent. We asked Tesla about the reason behind it, and like I said, they gave us their regular. We just adjust pricing and option whenever we want to. But they also said that what was it? Yeah, he said by any reasonable standard, these small changes are not newsworthy.
that was interesting?
That's why I call bullshit because I think they actually like the coverage of those things. They like when we report that Tesla cut the price on Model S and X. I think they like that stuff. That they're not newsworthy and like that's just for to save face. I don't think it's really what they think. Because the only explanation to me, because of course like you said they should just go with the constant prices, figure out their actual cost, and find a decent margin that they want on it, which they keep saying it's about 25% that they aim for, and then maintain that price for as long as they can, and if they do improvements to the production efficiency and anything like that, then yeah, sure, go ahead and either increase your margin or get that saving back to the customers. But in this case here, that car was launched a few weeks ago, like the new version of Model S and X. So I don't think like it's any like production efficiency. They should have figured out that cost like a month ago. So what changed exactly? I don't know. Other than I think they got their first. I think they got a boost of orders from all S and X when they announced the drivetrain change,
Right.
and now the rate of orders went down, of course, after the first initial boost, and now they're trying to find a way to maintain a decent rate of orders, and to do that, they found that reducing the entry price by a few $1,000s makes sense. So I think it's all demand related. It's all about demand creation, which of course it's something that we talk about with Tesla. It's talked about in the media and in terms of the stock price and everything, and we're going to get into that because it's always the thing that analysts and short sellers are saying that Tesla has a demand problem, and it's true in a sense that they have temporary demand problem, or the demand will go down periodically. But I think overall Tesla does not have a big problem. I mean, they are able to move the cars. There's still a strong demand for Model 3. Maybe less so for Model S and X, so that's might be why we are seeing that even with the drivetrain update, because there are other upgrades coming to Model S and X, and also that's something maybe they don't like us to talk about, but we know for a fact that there's a interior design refresh coming. Most likely, the battery pack upgrade too is coming. So, in my own opinion, I think those are a bigger upgrade than the drivetrain upgrade that we've seen. Even though that was a pretty good change, I think for the
Yeah.
lineup. But it's all about bringing the technology up to the Model 3 level, right? That drivetrain upgrade was about the new technology used in Model 3. I think the battery pack is going to be about bringing it back up to the quality of the Model 3 with the charge rate that the Model 3 is able to achieve, which even with the last upgrade, Model S and X are not able to, even though they're flagship vehicles that are more expensive. Uh, yeah, they are hard to sell right now. I mean, you've been saying that ever since the Model 3 came out, even though before we knew that it had a 250 kilowatt capacity and everything, you said that it's most likely going to cannibalize Model S sales. I think now it's becoming true. I think now we're starting to see it because I think people are trying to see the difference more.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a hard sell to me. Like, the the Model 3 is such a great car, and the Model S is just a little bit bigger and a little bit faster if you get the really a lot more expensive options.
Hmm.
And I just, like, it's a very small sliver of the population that would be interested in a Model S at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because when you think about it, like, if you look at it like, if price is, we don't look at price, the price doesn't matter at all. A lot of people will still choose the Model 3 over the Model S, just because it's lighter, it's a little bit smaller, it has the latest drivetrain technology, is more efficient. So even though Model S is more of a more car than the Model 3, uh, without all the same latest generation technology in it, it's just not as appealing. But I think that will change soon. And in the meantime, they don't only have to sell the Model S and X, they have also a bunch of inventory of older Model S and X with the pre drivetrain upgrade from last month. And they have to move that too. And in order to move that, they are releasing, bringing back the free unlimited supercharging for the lifetime of the ownership of the car. So if you look on Tesla's website, it's a new inventory website, you get a bunch of options for Model S and X with free unlimited supercharging. Honestly, I don't think it's a great deal at the moment. I mean, you can find new inventory that are marked down too, especially the 100D is Model S 100D looks pretty marked down with the previous generation drivetrain. But if you're going at it for the you want a Model S and X and you're looking at new inventory for just a free unlimited supercharging, unless you supercharge a lot, like you do a lot of long distance travel, I don't think it's worth it, especially until the end of the month where you get 5,000 miles of free supercharging with the referral program. 5,000 miles will last you a long time. I mean, so um, I'd go with the latest drivetrain. But again, I'm not even recommending, like, I'm recommending if you're really choosing between the two of that. Otherwise, I'd say wait until a few months from Model S and X to buy it.
All right, should we move
Uh,
on?
yeah.
All right.
Um,
So the free unlimited supercharging was kind of part of that last one.
yeah. Let me just, because my pages are not updating fast, but we we shared an email that Elon Musk sent out to. Well, I suppose we should start about the stock first, because that, I think that was partly triggered by that, and I think you agree with me on that, especially based on the timing of a wink. Yeah, the Tesla stock this week had a very bad week, mostly driven by well, the market in general, and what happened with the constant trade war with China is putting a lot of pressure on the market in general, and Tesla specifically due to its position on the Chinese market that is currently only based on importing car into China. So if they do that, they are subject to import tariffs, which limits the market for Tesla there, which is the reason why they are building the Gigafactory 3 there. But that won't happen until the end of the year. So in the meantime, they are affected greatly by the trade war, and it goes both ways too, because they have suppliers in China. So if Trump is applying its own import tariffs for things coming out of China, then if some of those, and they are affected this directly for computer parts for the autopilot third generation hardware and a few other things, that affects the price, of course, of the car globally, not just in China. So it goes both way, affects both way. But on top of it, this week there was a bunch of analyst notes that were very negative, including Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley, who was once a big Tesla fan and cheerleaders. Now he's at least on the stock, is pretty pessimistic, and he released a new bear case scenario at $10 a share, which is pretty insane. I think that
It's
was more, yeah.
yeah, that's I mean that it'll never hit 10. Like it'll get bought out way before then. Um, but that I don't know if you listened to the whole hour of his
No, I didn't
Q&A
get
with
into that. No.
it was pretty brutal. And
And that was with institutional investors. Can you set that up a little bit? What was the call like? Looked a little
yeah,
bit shady. It was just trashing Tesla in front of institutional investors. Is that it?
yeah, I mean it was basically a call with some big. It was like Adam Jonas had his own Tesla earnings call. Uh, and in a way I feel like it's a little bit of a rebuttal to Tesla taking questions from retail investors.
Oh, okay. You
I
think that's
think
the case?
I think just analysts in general don't like. I mean, clearly when they called on Galley that one time, and he got like 16 questions in. Um,
Mm.
which you helped with, obviously. But
Mm.
he, I think that pissed off uh, institutional uh, investor type
Analyst, you
people.
mean the analyst?
Yeah, analysts.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the reasons why they turned so negative recently. I mean, I still don't like on a, so we were talking about this beforehand a little bit. On a high level, I do not understand what has changed in the last 3 months. Like, so, disclosure, we both own lots of Tesla stock, or one of us owns a lot.
More recently for me, like
Yeah, more recently
well,
for me too.
yeah. Uh, Elon Musk called me anti-Tesla, and a bunch of people that reads Electrek say that I'm like, oh, I'm turning into a short. I'm actually long Tesla now, and I even built up on my position, my long position on Tesla this week with the big price drop. I felt like it was a good timing to double up on it. So
Yep, and I did as
I'm
well.
yeah, and Seth has been adding to his position over the last few weeks too. So we're not anti-Tesla at all. It's just that when we post something that's negative about Tesla, it's because we won't shut up about things that are negative about it just because we own the stock. On the contrary, when we point out something that it's looks negative, that can be perceived as negative, uh, it's uh, it's for Tesla to correct course. Basically, we think that they make a mistake there, that they should correct course. But
And
sorry,
one of the things like about being long Tesla and not,
mm,
day trader Tesla, is that we can have these like, hey, Tesla needs to improve here. This is kind of bad, or this,
mm,
retailers are pissed off or whatever. Is that these are things that are going to get fixed in the long run, and we believe in Tesla's mission. We believe
mhm,
Tesla's going to, come out of this whatever is happening to the stock right now, perfectly fine. Um, that's like one of the I mean, the reason that I started Electrek was because I like nobody was covering Tesla coherently,
mhm,
and I thought it was like a big deal. So I just don't understand. I mean, so the other thing is, obviously I've got the Apple site, and when 9 to 5 Mac does something negative, we get the same thing, although not as much vitriol.
from the
Maybe
Apple fans.
yeah, but not. It's a new level lately with
Mhm.
the Tesla fans, and it's not
Yeah,
like it's clearly not all the fans. It's like the top 10%. I want to say
yeah.
maybe the bottom 10%. You throw in there, but like the people who are just rabid, like they've got the weird Twitter names that have Tesla in them somewhere, like
Mhm,
that. Those people, like and like those people are very weird, but like it's kind of frustrating as a Tesla fan, because I know when those people go out and talk all their Tesla smack, they are actually turning people away from Tesla, because
mhm.
that is an ugly look. That is a
Yeah,
annoying, ugly look when you go out and evangelize a company like that that's doing, some great things and some not so great things. When
mhm.
you evangelize across the board, you're polarizing people. So, and I feel like CEO Elon Musk also, kind of encourages that.
Yeah,
So it's not in Tesla's best interest to have raging fanboys go across the internet and attack people who, I think we have some good points, like some areas where Tesla could improve. I mean, I know
for
retail is like
sure.
super not happy right now, and
Yeah,
like it's not good to have like retail employees who basically have no idea if they're going to be around in a couple months, if there's going to be if there's going to be toilet paper in the stalls. So it's it's just frustrating to me, because these people that I guess somewhere in their heart they really love Tesla, but man, there could not be anything worse for Tesla than to have these like lunatics running around the internet with their
yeah, and I feel we are in a unique position to comment on that in a certain way because we are ourselves big Tesla fans, and with your experience with Apple, and of course the original like corporate, because there's not that many like people that are fan of a corporation really, like they're just anything that a corporation comes out with, they're fan of it. It's a weird thing to be. It's not like being a ultra fan of a sports team or anything like that. Like you're actually a fan of a those sports team or corporation in a way, but you know what I mean. And you having a long time experience with Apple fans, and then we started at Electrek pretty early, so we saw it build up that fanboy attitude that came up, and it became increasingly worse. And the best example of it, I think, is with the stock price, because when the stock is doing great, we don't get that much. Like the spirits are higher, and even though we still report things that are negative about Tesla during those times, the reaction is not as bad because they're like, oh yeah, all right, it's okay, it's not bad, but it's not affecting the stock. But then if the stock is on top of it, people get that surviving mode where they're like. Oh, you cannot report that because then you're affecting the stock negatively, and then that's bad for everyone. And I just posted in the newsroom at Electrek we got a comment today on one of the articles, which literally said to us from a Tesla fanboy that we cannot report facts, like in actual facts, if they can be used by shorts to make their case. That we shouldn't do that as pro Tesla people, which just blows my mind to me, because it's so ridiculous to just you cannot ignore part of the story because it can make Tesla looks bad. It cannot work like that. And even though I agree that the Tesla doing well is well for the EV adoption, which is our goal, Electrek, to accelerate EV adoption, just as like Tesla's mission. But I think that just like we can do it, sometimes Tesla can do it too. And what I mean is moving away with that mission, like not seeing the end goal sometimes, and just um, Tesla does it a lot just for the stock price too. Tesla sometimes is gonna want to do well quarterly instead of for the long goal, and I think that's moving away from their mission. So we just try to correct that if we can, and sometimes we're wrong too. But I think for the most part we're doing pretty well, and yeah, and stock price obsession leads us to all those analyst posts this week, and most of them that were negative on it were talking about a domain issue. So then Elon sent out a tweet with just a wink in it, and then he sent out an email to our employees. And of course, he knows that when he sent out an email to our employees, it's gonna leak at some point. Normally, pretty soon. We normally get it the same day at Electrek. So we did release that email.
As
That
did
email,
CNBC and everybody else.
yeah, a bunch of other people got the email too. And the email said that Tesla received 50,000 net new orders during the quarter. So the goal of the email, I think, was clear to say that we don't have an issue. We have 50,000 new net orders just this quarter. And then he went on
Not
to
orders,
explain.
sales.
No, new orders, net new orders.
I thought it was sales.
No, new orders. And then he said that they are within reach of breaking the sales record, so the delivery sales record, which was 90,700 units or something. Yeah, 90,700 units that was achieved in Q4 last year. A bunch of people framed that email weird, where they said that Tesla was actually on pace. Tesla was they were going to achieve it. We'll just keep going that. It's not exactly right, because I'm not sure that. Well, first of all, they need more orders than 50,000 to do it, but that's net new orders. So 50,000, maybe they need another like 30 or something like that if you account for the cars in transit, and then maybe closer to 40 if you account for the cars that's going to be in transit at the end of the quarter too, because there wasn't that many last quarters. It was like 10 to 12,000. But then they also need to increase production. They said production was at 900 units a week now, a day, 900 units a day for Model 3. And they said that it needs to be at 1,000 for it to work. So they still have to increase.
Haven't they been at like 900 for kind of a while?
Yeah, they even reached 1,000, but as it's often the case with Tesla, they are good at making like a burst of a production, and then it doesn't stabilize at the same level, so it goes down a little bit and then stabilize there. So now it sounds like they're very much stabilized at 900 units a day, but they need that to be at 1,000 units in order to achieve that, and they want to do that by the end of the quarter, which is the second quarter, and 7,000 units. I think that's the level that they want right now in Fremont, because they want to be at 10,000 units by the end of the year, but that's with 3,000 units a week at Gigafactory 3 in Shanghai. But I mean, it didn't do much for the stock that day. It stopped the bleeding, if you will, for the stock.
I mean, it did well. It did okay if you consider that the rest of the market was down. But Tesla had been going way down compared to the rest of the market going up. So it didn't correct very much.
Yeah, I don't think it had the reaction that Elon thought it would have when he sent that wink on Twitter. But it is reassuring, I think, for investors that everything that people have been saying about the demand issue, it's really not true. It's the demand is not that big of a problem, though they still need to pull some levers every now and again to achieve it. It's insane to me that people are still every time Tesla pull a demand lever, they're saying, "Oh, it's over, it's over. The demand is crashing." I thought they've been saying that for like 4 years in a row. Um, Yet Tesla do things to increase demand for sure. Doesn't mean that the demand is dead completely. It's just that it's not at the level they want it to with their current production capacity. That's it. Uh, yeah, that's about it for your email, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always to me like he knows that sending an email is a public relations tool. So it's always interesting to me to see what he's going to send, because that's the same thing as putting it on the website in a way,
Well, yeah.
or sending it through Twitter. Um,
At the
but
same time,
he can't do that anymore.
yeah, not the same level now. At the same time, and that's going to be a good segue to the next article. Last week, he sent out the email that we leaked about the hardcore cost cutting, and that was not maybe like the an email that he wanted out there, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
he still
Because
sent it.
that certainly didn't help the stock.
No, and now we have a follow up this week because we wanted to know exactly what it meant. Because what we're referring to the in that email, he said that they're going to review all expenses at Tesla, and they are encouraging the team to make efforts to cut expenses in a big way, in a hardcore way. It said, and himself and Zach Kirkhorn, the new CFO at Tesla, are going to review all the expenses. So over the last week, the employees and team at Tesla have been taking ownership of the expenses that they think is related to their group. And we've talked to a few people about what it meant for them. And when you said hardcore, the employees took it to heart, and the some of them are very nervous really about what it's going to mean when, because if you are responsible for an expense, you know that either Cochrane or Musk is going to review it now. So it makes everything a bit different. And they say that they put freeze on a bunch of just smallest thing, including the office supply, copy paper, toilet paper. And if they were already down and needed a re-up on the toilet paper, that means they had no paper at all. And one of the sources said that the employees started even bringing their own toilet paper to work now. Same things for other, just like a water bottle that they used to keep for the owners that came into service or something like that. Cut things like that too. The biggest thing really was like the Tesla used to give cell phones to employees if you use that music as or work, you get a stipends for data don't need for their cell phones that over these. Which I don't like really, because if you have someone using their phone at work, I mean, it's of course a big part of productivity. We want to be able to reach them all the time, and but I feel like a few companies now they're doing like everyone has a cell phone, so it doesn't matter much anyway. But of course, if you use it as part of your work should pay for it. One of maybe the more extreme ones that was explained to me by two different sources is in terms of the detailing of the cars that are being delivered. Uh, Tesla is, of course, increasing production a lot, like 900 units per week for the Model 3. That's more than they ever done when you compare at that Model S and X. It's a lot of deliveries, and it's new volumes for a lot of stores. And one of the big bottlenecks for the delivery is the detailing of the car. They want to make sure the car is clean and ready to be received by the customers. And they were doing that themselves, or they were used if they didn't have time to do it themselves, they have to use companies and car washes in the area to do the work. And that would add up a pretty big bill if you didn't have enough people in store to do that for you. So they get hundreds of dollars in bills from car washes around the area. And that was something that was deemed non-essential since it's something they can do themselves. But then it adds to the workload of the employees that already couldn't do it within their time. So now we're told that some employees are bringing the cars back home and cleaning them on their own time in order to be able to deliver them clean to customers, which is pretty crazy too. I mean, it's a lot of things that add up like that that seems pretty crazy, pretty extreme for a cost cutting metaphor, hardcore, really, as to take Elon's word. Um, and I
Yeah,
mean,
it just seems like a weird thing to do. Like kind of like the cutting out all the retail operations and then putting them back. It just seems like so okay, this kind of is a good segue into Zach Kirchhorn. Is that his? I can't remember how to pronounce his last name.
Kirkhorn,
The new
Kirkhorn, I
CFO
think.
who
Yeah,
replaced Deepak. Um,
Kirkhorn. Yeah,
yeah, so it seems like that is about when things started getting weird. Like when Deepak left and Zach started. I mean, the guy seems like a nice guy, but the timing of his, when he took over and when things kind of got weird at Tesla financially, seems to be more than a coincidence. What are your thoughts on that?
very hard to say. I mean, he was already part of it for like it was a. It seems like there was a long transition period. I think because I think they knew that they wanted to promote him for a while, and then they knew that Deepak was going away for a while. So I think there was a close transition period that shouldn't. I assume the goal was to make it seamless so that there's not a big change to the financial team or anything like that. But yeah, the timing does look weird, like you just said.
I mean, if you think about it, at the end of quarter four, they've gotten 2 quarters of profitability in a row, selling Model 3, building them in tents, whatever, but selling tons of Model 3s. And then they switch CFOs, and all of a sudden, and obviously the $7,500 federal tax credit, shipping all the the Model 3s to Europe and China. These are all big deals, but like I feel like a good CFO, kind of sees these things ahead of time and can kind of forecast it out. Like, hey, you know, uh, we're having 2 good quarters right now, like really good quarters, but the $7,500 tax credit ends, and we're sending a bunch of cars to Europe and China, so we're
Hmm.
basically going to have $0 coming in over the next 2 months. Like that should have been on the earnings call uh, for quarter four 2018, and instead it was like rosy Q1. Don't worry about it. And
Yeah, I think, but I wouldn't blame Kirkhorn for that. I'm pretty sure it's Elon's fault. Because we've been calling for them to raise money for a long time, and of course, the best timing to do it would have been to do it after 2 profitable quarter, like you said. Uh, Things were looking rosy at that point. So, but I think the reason why they held up on the capital raise for so long is that Elon kept guiding that, oh, we're going to be profitable forever now, basically, um, starting from now on, and he wanted to prove because he because one thing is clear: the Tesla shorts are getting to Elon pretty easy. Uh, well, I should say pretty easy. I mean, they were piling up on it pretty hard too, so it's not like lesser men would have probably broken down over the pressure that the shorts are getting on Musk, and he hasn't completely broken down yet. He's just momentarily uh, let it show that it's affecting him. But I think he wanted to prove everybody wrong that I can run Tesla profitably and go it further on. But he didn't anticipate that the delivery delays in Europe and the longer lead time from production to delivery of the Model 3 would be such a financial strain on the company because you end up having to pay ahead to build a car and not getting paid for much longer because the cars are on cargo ships for weeks. So I think that's the thing that really killed Tesla financially during the first quarter and brought the cash down significantly and prompt all those weird moves that we covered during the first quarter. So yeah, I think that that was Elon. It was driven by Elon's ego, maybe, where he should have just go back on his word and raise money on at the end of the year 2018, even though he said he wouldn't. And then Tesla would have been a much better financial situation going into the first quarter, more cash on hand, and they would have been able to withstand that cash pressure during the first quarter and not do all those moves that have been proven bad now, like, especially the um, closing of the store, since he backtracked it on that. I think that could not have happened in the first place if Tesla had a good cash position.
Right. And Jonathan King in the comments brings up something interesting. He says that most quarters Tesla has tricks to manipulate earnings. That's kind of a bad way to put it, I think, or a negative way to put it. But I feel like maybe Deepak had some tricks up his sleeve to kind of make things look a little rosier, and maybe perhaps Zach is a little bit less, smoke and mirrors and more real deal. I don't know. That's just a wild hypothesis.
I don't. In terms of like the shareholders letter and presenting the way they present the facts there, I think it was still very much the voice that we're used to at Tesla, the same way to present things. So in terms of actual like fudging the numbers, I don't know, like, that would have been illegal. So I'm not sure that.
You can always do a little bit of stuff like delay payments.
Well, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing in terms of presenting Tesla's financial situation was always between the gap and non-gap
Right.
accounting, where especially with the credit, with like the ZF credit and other environmental credit that Tesla get. There have been some issue with that, where whether Tesla would present them with or without the credit, and then you wouldn't find out until Tesla actually do it. Is the 10Q or 10 SF financial filing at the a few days after the release of the earnings. So that was always a way to play around. But last quarter was bad. I don't think there was any other way to look at it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Apple and Tesla, because that came out this week that according to Craig Irwin at Roth Capital, back in 2013, Apple made a formal bid to buy Tesla. So he said that this week, that based on multiple sources that are very credible, he knows for a fact that Apple bid on Tesla for around $250 a share back in 2013. We already knew that Elon thought about selling Tesla back in 2013 in
To Google.
to Google. Yeah, in Ashley Vance's biography of Tesla, which Elon disputed some facts into that biography, but just a few, and that wasn't one of them. So I would assume
Yeah.
that it is true that that he thought about that. He had an actual deal apparently with Larry Page. They shook hand on it to for Google to buy Tesla at a certain price, and then invest a few billions in it to help accelerate the company. And Elon was to stay on board for 8 years or something like that. So it made sense that if he was willing to buy, that he would go to other companies and try to get a bidding war going or something like that. And there were rumors back then in 2013 too that Elon met with Apple's head of merger acquisition at the time. So looks very real. Where I'm not exactly sure is the price point, because Irwin said that it was at $240 a share. So I'm not sure if they were talking about back then $250 a share, or the equivalent of now at $240 a share, because of course there were inflation, and they were the outstanding share of Tesla increased a lot over those last 6 years. So
Right.
$240 a share now would make more sense, because $240 a share back then would have been a lot less, and the stock wasn't trading at anywhere close to 140, so it would have been a huge premium on the price back then. So I don't know.
So if we know that Tesla was in talks, very serious talks, to go to sell itself to Google, how, like, Elon would have to go to other players, like big players, and make sure that they weren't interested in buying Tesla as well. I mean, that's like your fiduciary duty to make sure that, like, hey, maybe Apple wants to buy us for 5% premium or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right there. I think it's actually a fiduciary duty to seek other buyers when you're seeing the company. So the board in itself would have to have done that. Yeah.
so it's almost like it almost has to have happened at least a little bit. And then, of course, we had that report that Tesla met with Apple's M&A person, but Elon said something about that. He had a response to that. I can't remember what it was, but it kind of shot it down a little bit. But let's talk about, like, what would a Apple and Google or Tencent or somebody else buying Tesla look like? I mean, on the surface, like, Apple buying Tesla would be phenomenal. Apple or
Mhm.
Tesla would pretty much have access to unlimited capital.
Mm-hmm.
They would be able to do all in the truck and the semi, and everything would be able to move faster, and they could build battery factories all over the place. Um, for Apple, they have vehicle aspirations. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a big part of it. Um, Automobiles are kind of like the one or two areas that Apple scale kind of fits for. That Apple hasn't gotten into. I mean, they're getting into financial services. I would say, like, real estate and automobiles are probably the only two bigger things than uh, iPhones and computers that Apple could get into. So it does make sense on the surface for Apple, but if you dive down a little bit, I'm sure Tim Cook would not want Elon Musk anywhere near the company, because frankly, he would be
Different management styles.
like, you couldn't have any more different management styles, as far as I can tell. And also, you want to keep your job. Like, Tim Cook wants to keep his job. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
the minute Elon got in, he would be, telling the board
Threaten.
that
Yeah.
he would be a better CEO, just like Steve Jobs did, 2 decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I think if Apple bought Tesla, Elon would be either out, or, his role would be, product architect or something that he would hate and probably not continue with.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
the Google thing sounded a little bit different, because I think Elon and Larry Page are friends. They have a different company structure there. So,
Yeah, it would have
you
been
know,
an alphabet company. It would have
right,
stood alone and be an alphabet company, I think.
right. And the
As
separate
for
companies are
Apple,
more
uh,
autonomous there. So, it
yeah.
may make more sense. Google actually has more short-term capital currently than Apple does. Apple has a lot of its money in long-term investments. So, and maybe it's a better fit as well. I mean, obviously Google has Waymo,
Hmm.
and that's, those are two big bets. But I don't know. Me
You,
personally,
you,
I think Google would be a better fit for Tesla than Apple. What do you think?
I think none of it is going to happen, and we're talking just for nothing here. And
Okay.
here's why. I agree that a lot of things could be good for Tesla and everything, but I think that Tesla can survive without them first, and
Yep.
I think that Elon wouldn't let it happen. For one thing that's been talking a lot about is about the machine that makes the machine, the manufacturing aspect. He's been diving deep into that stuff, and he wants Tesla to be a manufacturing powerhouse, and he doesn't see Apple or Google like that. To a degree, he's very much right too, because of course, both Google and Apple, uh, they contract their manufacturing to a lot of their manufacturing to other companies. Of course, Apple has a big partnership with Foxconn in China. Google famously is more about the software, where they have Android, but most Android phones are not made by Google, including even the Pixel. Right, Pixel is not made by Google. It's designed by Google, but it's not made by them. Right.
Yeah, they outsource it. I mean, it's a sliding scale. I mean,
Mm.
the Pixel is just a little bit less Google than the iPhone is made by Foxconn and has mostly Samsung parts, or a lot of Samsung parts. The
Okay.
Pixel isn't, you know, it's
Okay. So
similar
yeah,
situation.
So my point is that they don't want to be anything like that. And I think that if they were bought by maybe not by Google again for the same point we're talking about, where it would just be more like a financial situation where they become an Alphabet company and they're not backed by Alphabet or Google, whatever. And with Apple, I think Apple would be much more involved into it and will try to. First of all, they would fire a ton of people, get their supply chain managers in there, and change the entire structure of leadership. But and they will try to make it more like the way Apple does their manufacturing, which is they do the design and then they make deals with suppliers and then they make deals to assemble the device. And that's that. You can do that in the car industry. A bunch of companies do it. Jaguar, for example, the high pace is made by Magna, and the bunch of other companies are using third-party manufacturer even to assemble the cars. So it's not entirely out of the ordinary in the auto industry, but Tesla is doing the completely different way, where they want to be involved in the entire thing because they think that the manufacturing is just as important as the product itself. So, and they're right in many ways because uh, if you have to do a repair on your computer, it's a lot less big of a deal than doing a repair on your car, and a lot of that is due to the reliability of the manufacturing process and everything like that. So, uh, for this reason and a bunch of others, of course, I think Tesla will look to stay independent, mainly because they can do it too. Now, if they couldn't, and if something were to happen or something like that, I do think that a buyout would be a reasonable outcome. Um, and I do think that Apple or maybe even still Google would be interested still at this point, especially at that kind of level right now, around $40 billion. I think that they might be interested. But I don't think that's happening. I don't think Tesla is going bankrupt or anything like that. I think, especially with now over $4 billion in cash, they're gonna be okay for a little while.
Yeah, and they have a lot of money coming in from ZEB credits and other. Uh, obviously they're selling quite a few cars.
Yeah, the $2 billion for Chrysler. People forget about that. That's pretty crazy that they have
That's a lot of money.
yeah, they have a deal for $2 billion. Most of it coming next year from Chrysler, just for the environmental credit in Europe. Uh, that's going to help a lot their finances if they get $2 billion more for doing nothing else than keep selling cars in Europe, which they are pretty sure they were still planning to do next year.
Yeah.
Of course, that's very much a temporary situation because Chrysler plans to turn around. Just door open on its own here. They want to sell their own cars and not having to send a competitor a $2 billion check for the year. So they said about $2 billion, and most of it in 2020, then a little bit of it in 2021, and by 2022, Chrysler wants to be completely independent of Tesla for the environmental credit in Europe. All right, a few quick news again about Tesla before we go, and then we're gonna move on to other things. A do-it-yourself maintenance instruction for the Model 3. Tesla came out with that this week. Pretty interesting, where they want to save you a visit at the service center for standard procedures. Most of it is like very simple stuff, like restarting the touchscreen, pairing Bluetooth, connecting to Wi-Fi, programming your home link, which is a little bit more difficult, but still very simple. Installing phone charger, very simple stuff. The more complicated one, I think, is the changing the air filter, the cabin air filter, because it involves removing two body panels and unscrewing a few things. So that's one that normally would be more reserved for a service center visit. But now Tesla has all the instruction online to do it yourself if you want to replace your cabin filter.
Yeah, and it's possible that they're going to add more things to this.
I would assume, right?
And the idea obviously is to reduce visits to the service center.
Mm-hmm.
Some people kind of go there quite frequently, and obviously gums up the works.
Yeah. And specifically about the cabin filter, it's interesting because I think some people, because you can put the settings in a way manually to have like the speed of the fans very high up, and having it circulating a lot so that the air goes into the filter several times. So if you're in a bad air pollution area, you can basically do that mode of a high fan speed and on the airflow and recirculating. It would make the air quality inside the car better. Not maybe not equivalent, but close to the HEPA air filter that you have in Model S and X.
The bioweapons defense.
Yeah, like the bioweapons defense mode. So not maybe to that level, but pretty close. But it will wear your air filter much faster. So if you have the ability to replace it yourself somewhat easily, that could be great. So kudos on Tesla for making that more simple. All right, moving on from Tesla, though still partly related to it, Elon Musk, a Boring Company, officially got the contract in Las Vegas. We talked about that earlier this year, that they were working with the convention center in Las Vegas to build a loop system there. So I have 2 tunnels and electric transportation system inside it to serve the convention center, which is expanding in Las Vegas. It's already gigantic, and it's getting even bigger, and they want a way for people to move around faster in it. Now they were authorized a $48 million deal to build it. So it's the first paying customer for the Boring Company, because they have a bunch of other deals like in Chicago and in Los Angeles and in Maryland and everything like that. But all those deals, the Boring Company is expected to pay themselves or find investors to build out the projects, the loops, and then they can operate it and charge people to use it. So it's a big front end investment in order to get the infrastructure project. In Las Vegas, it's not a deal like that. The convention center is actually paying $48 million for the Boring Company to build that project. And it's most likely going to be the first commercially used loop that we have, because they want that thing to be built out pretty fast. They want it to be ready by the 2021 CES. That's in January 2021. But Elon said it could be ready by the end of the year. So, but of course, that's Elon.
So it'll be ready by CES, hopefully. Maybe
Yeah,
CES in
next
2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's gonna be interesting to see, because the other interesting part is I talked to Steve Hill. We just had at the convention center organization, and I talked to also Steve Davis, the president of the Boring Company, when the project was first announced. And my main question was, what's going to be inside those loops? Is it going to be like the Model X thing that we saw in December with it's basically just a Model X with guiding wheels inside the tunnels and people will be transported in that? Or it's going to be the actual pod, that pedestrian pod that for first unveiled when the Boring Company was launched? And they said that they were still considering both possibilities. So back in December,
I think it's kind of silly to build pods. They should just have a train. Like we've already figured this out.
But it's basically the pod is basically like a train. It's just that they're not linked together.
But why not just make a train? Like it's like we have trains. We do trains.
Because they want people to be able to leave just nonstop. They have people get in and out nonstop.
Yeah, I mean they could have a train leave every minute. It wouldn't be they already have the monorail in Las Vegas. It's kind of the same thing. I don't know. It just seems silly to me to have like little cars. But
I think the goal to be more individual than having wagons linked together like a train is that they have the ambition of one day being like a multi-level, multi-tunnel system where it could be more at destination than just from a train station to another train station. So I think that's why they keep focusing on that. But you're right that for the Las Vegas one, since it's going to be like 2 stations, one on the side and one on the other side of a convention center, maybe 3 or something like that. Yeah, maybe it makes more sense. There's not that many destinations that you have at a single location, though it's going to be a pretty big location, especially with the expansion of the convention center in Vegas. But the main interesting thing is that they actually gonna have to build a full system there. So they're gonna have to have station, the first powering company loop station there. So they have to develop the entire system from going from the station to inside the tunnels, and so all the entire project needs to be figured out. And then I think they're going to be able to more easily expand to a bigger project that are more like city-wide project, including in Vegas. There's already discussion in Vegas to expand that beyond the commercial center and having an entire loop for the strip, the Vegas strip, and going all the way to the airport too. So there's some definite progress here because the money is already there. The money is in whose ever bank account at this point, and they're moving forward. So
That's
not
good.
just a pipe dream anymore.
Yeah, and there is, I guess, a Tesla component. Isn't it kind of the understanding that Tesla would build the pods?
Well, it's either they actually have the Model X, which is different Tesla, or whatever Tesla they decide to use. Or yeah, if not, if they do get the pod, you're right, they're gonna use the powertrain inside the pod, or they could, or maybe Tesla will actually build the whole thing, which I think would make sense. But
Right. So there is a good upside for Tesla in this situation.
and you know what was interesting too? I didn't post that in the podcast post, but we did an article on it that the Boring Company today they released that Model 3 race inside the tunnel versus Surface Street, which I think was a kind of a dumb video, by the way, because it's not a race, of course. Like there's one actual public surface street inside traffic, and there's one car inside an empty tunnel, which doesn't link directly to the public street in each side, so it's easy to get in and out. So the race was, of course, a marketing stunt. But what was interesting about it is that the Model 3 that went inside the tunnel didn't have the guiding wheels that was unveiled back in December.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Elon said, well, he didn't confirm it exactly. He said pretty much the autopilot was guiding it inside the thing because it went up to 127 miles per hour inside that little tiny tunnel. Which is why it was because it's so tiny that they had those guiding wheels, and those guiding wheels was basically the product being unveiled at that event back in December. Because that event, like what I took out of it is that the Boring Company was moving away from the pod thing and was instead using Tesla vehicle with those guiding wheels. That was like my biggest takeaway of the thing, and now there looks like there's no need for the guiding wheels. So I don't know. All right. Rivian, that was a post from this weekend, from last weekend. But I think it was so interesting that we're going to talk about it today real quick. We're very excited about the R1T, the Rivian's electric pickup truck that's coming out next year. They've been showing around at a bunch of different shows, and now they brought it to, what's it called? The Overland Expo, which has a bunch of campers and things like that. So they showed basically a camper version of the R1T pickup truck. With like a tent on the back, but the tent on the back is not what's cool. If you remember with the R1T, they have a cargo tunnel that it's like between the bed and the cabin. It's a tunnel that goes all the way through the truck. And at the unveiling last year, it was nothing there. It was just like they said, it's a cargo space. But now they are showing that they could design accessories that could completely fit inside the entire tunnel, which is a big cargo tunnel. And for the camper mode, they designed a prototype that's basically an entire kitchen that fits inside that tunnel, and you slide it out from the tunnel, and it deploys into a kitchen with a bunch of things, including some storage space, 2 induction burner, a sink, 5-gallon of water storage, and organizer for cookware and utensils and everything like that. So basically, like a little camper situation that just comes out of that, and you could not have it all the time. You could leave that thing in your garage and just lift it up into the storage tunnel when you actually need to go camping. So you're not always carrying around the kitchen in your pickup truck.
Looks like it has a slider on there too. So
yeah, so that you can easily like move it in and out.
So just looking at this now, this would be amazing for tailgating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Well,
like, you put out a big grill and
yeah,
like it would be amazing.
Yeah. I'm very excited about that truck in terms of like all the possibilities for it, because we reported on that now, but a few months ago we reported also on they have a patent for a modular system that you can easily change the bed from a bunch of different configuration that can be a camper, be a box, be a system to hold bikes, a system to OLED TVs and all that. So you can change that system very easily. So a bunch of different possibilities with the truck. So they're really doubling down on that adventure truck that they've been marketing. That it's a truck for adventure, so you can all electric truck for adventure. And I think that's smart because we know that a bunch of other companies are also working on electric pickup trucks. So you want that kind of niche market of people that are actually looking for to do things with their truck. It's not just like people here in the city that are going around with trucks for no reason. It's you can actually do things with it, which is fun.
I think Rivian is a company like, so, we're obviously big fans of Tesla, and Tesla's been doing like these amazing, interesting things for a while. But Rivian is another one that's like, it captures your imagination. They're doing really cool stuff that like you just like. I think you ordered one. I want one of these too. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 the kind of product that like you just have to have. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like the kind of thing that, um, it's like lust worthy. Like it's just such a sexy idea. So many cool like components. Like you can imagine just
Mm-hmm.
going out into the woods and camping with this thing, and it would just be amazing. So
Yeah.
it's
The
interesting because when you look at the other companies that are out there, like Faraday Future, or the other startups that were out there that they kind of built like an SUV, and there's not much interesting about it.
mm-hmm.
Like this company has got people's attention, like all the people who are Tesla fans, all the people who are Chevy Bolt fans. Everybody's kind of watching, like people who are pickup truck fans and
Yeah.
aren't necessarily even electric vehicle fans are very excited about this product.
Yeah, absolutely. I just I'm very excited for it to come to market, and I think it will certainly, especially now that they're backed by Amazon and by Ford. My only concern right now is really like what's going to be like the price point for the 180, because I like normally I'm a guy that I range is not that important and everything like that, but if you want to do all the crazy things that you can do with that truck, like going into the desert and go camping and bring carry bikes around, like electric motorcycles and everything like that, that of course is takes a lot of energy. So the higher capacity version of the truck are going to be more interesting, in my opinion. And I'm curious of how they're going to deliver the 180 kilowatt hour version and at what price. That's the only concern I have right now. But otherwise, I think they're going to do it. They're going to have a great product on the market. Real
Yep.
quick, a quick note on Chevron. We always like to mention when those oil and gas companies they do big investment into electric vehicle future. And EVgo and Chevron announced a partnership this week that they're gonna deploy together a bunch of charging stations at Chevron gas stations. They already have 5 in the works, and there may be more coming. And there's one already open in Menlo Park. In Menlo Park, yeah, in Menlo Park is the one is already operational, and they're all in California right now, in the Bay Area and the Los Angeles area. But soon, and maybe in the Chevron station next to you, you're gonna see a bunch of EVgo charging station.
Yeah, and so just a little tidbit on the oil industry, or the gas station industry. Those gas stations are usually franchises, and the franchisees make almost nothing on the actual gasoline that they pump. Um, it's mostly to get people to come in and buy some stuff at the convenience store, and that's kind of where they make a lot of their money.
Mm.
It's just like a movie theater. Like a movie theater makes almost no money on the movie itself. The margin is like razor thin,
On the
but they make
tickets.
tons. Yeah, they make tons of money on popcorn and any other garbage that they feed you. So them going to electric, it brings the people in, like unfortunately for longer. Like you got a half hour to kill while your car is filling up with electrons. So
Mm.
you're basically stuck at a store, theoretically in the middle of nowhere, a couple blocks, I guess. There might be some other stuff going on, but
Mm.
you're going to go in the store and you're going to buy some stuff. And, that's not nothing. That's an important thing for these franchisees.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking at too. But it sounded like the deal is actually with Chevron though in this case. So they probably Chevron agreed to work with their own franchisee to deploy those
Right.
stations. Yeah, because it's at a multiple locations. So I assume it's not the same owner. But anyway, it's fun to see more charging stations being deployed. And that's about it for us, guys, this week. Thanks a lot for listening and watching on YouTube, on your podcast app. And we're going to see you at same place, same time next week. Have a good one.